Let's talk virtually, from idea to success. This is a webinar series being held by the Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation. Good evening. I am Jeannine Comma, a director of the BEF and your moderator for this evening. I just wish to share a bit about the objective of this webinar series. It is to provide an online forum for practical and hands-on discussion about the journey of entrepreneurship from idea to success. We are living in an unprecedented time. Things are not going to be what they were 20 months ago, 10 months ago, 5 months ago. And as I said, we have to do it together, but we also have to take responsibility for some of what we do alone. We at the BEF, this series really is closely aligned to our mandate. Our mandate is to help to support and to create the entrepreneurship environment in Barbados. So this evening's session is entitled Stepping Out as an Entrepreneur. And we have two highly accomplished panelists joining us this evening. First, we have Mrs. Cherita Odell, and the second is Mr. Rohan Ford. I will introduce Mrs. Odell first, and then Mr. Ford, and then I will make a couple other remarks and then turn it over to the panelists. Mrs. Odell, a former national track and field athlete and Olympic representative, has an MBA in marketing and human resource management. She was the sales manager and duty manager at the 4-star Accra Beach Hotel and Resort, and the marketing manager of Montrose Holdings, where her portfolio included the marketing and sales of South Beach Hotel, Seabreeze Hotel, the former Rainbow Reef Hotel, Ocean One Residences, Ocean Two Resort, and Chickmont Foods. She was also the operations manager of All Seasons Resort on the West Coast. Mrs. Odell made a decision to change her course slightly, and she is now an entrepreneur. She is the real estate broker for two sister agencies, Million Dollar Homes and Barbados Real Estate 246. I said she was accomplished, didn't I? I am reading a bit, but there's more to say. She has a media production company. It's called Sherry Berry Productions, and is responsible for the real estate and lifestyle TV program, Caribbean Window, which aired on CBS WSEE in 31 countries, and the internet show The Intern. She has twice been the featured agent for the Barbados edition of HGTV's House Hunter hit series, Caribbean Life. She's also a motivational speaker and a life coach, and has been a radio and television sports analyst for track and field for several years. Mrs. Cherita Odell. I'll come back to Mrs. Odell for her to start to share with you a little bit about her journey. Our second panelist is Mr. Rohan Ford. Mr. Ford proudly says he's a 32-year-old Barbadian entrepreneur. Oh, Mr. Rohan. His company, Oasis Ventures, is focused on taking ideas to implementation, just along the course that we want to talk about. In his role as a business developer, he has been involved in e-mobility, renewable energy, downstream uses for recycled car tires, sports and entertainment business ventures. Again, another accomplished panelist. He is now focused on ensuring the longevity of some of his ventures, and we want to talk about that, given, as I said earlier on, we are living in an unprecedented time. And he has a mantra, which I'll share with you, but we wanted to talk about it a little later on as well. He says, starting things is fun, but making them last, that is a true skill. So to you, the attendees in the Zoom webinar, you can pose questions for the panel using the chat or the question and answer feature. So we are hoping that this webinar will go for about 40 minutes now, since we are 6 minutes into the process. And I am going to start, therefore, by asking Mrs. Odell to share with us a little bit about your journey and how you decided to use a little bit of jargon, segue from being an employee, executive management employee, to becoming an entrepreneur. Mrs. Odell.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeannine. I think entrepreneurship is something that's often in you. So I found that, you know, after college, I was able to get a job after about 5 months or so. But even leading up to that, in general, I always wanted to do my own thing. You know, I was a person that, as a young child, when I was playing Monopoly, I was aggressive. I had to get all the houses, I had to buy up the hotel, I had to have the most money. So that was always in me. Even when I was working as a hotel manager on the side, it was natural in me to do extra stuff. So I was coaching swimming. In my early 20s, I was, what can I do? What can I do? Let me be a typist for UE students. I live close to the university. So you know what? I'll type your 10-page legal paper overnight for an express fee. I was thinking of something to put extra in my pocket, but also because I like that feeling of being able to control the outcome.
Yes.
I think things changed for me along the path. When I was in the hotel, I love hotel life, I love hospitality, but I started realizing, wait a minute, I'm bringing you in how many millions? And my salary is still here? Okay. I'll cope. I'm young. I guess this is how it's supposed to be. But when I went on to the next position, you could see I had a lot of in my portfolio. I started realizing that things were being added to the portfolio and my salary was still here.
Yes.
So the itch in me was even stronger. I wasn't feeling fulfilled because I was sitting down in meetings time and time again, hearing how well the company was doing, knowing full well that I was contributing to the success, but I wasn't seeing myself ever getting through any ceiling to climb higher.
Yes.
And that's kind of how it all started. And there was a series of events which catapulted me into saying, you know what, let me try to do this myself.
Yes. Okay. So how do you describe yourself now? You call yourself an entrepreneur. And if someone said, what is it that makes you an entrepreneur? How would you describe that?
I think, first of all, you are a risk taker. Entrepreneur has nothing to do with safety and security. It is about stepping out into the unknown, not knowing if things are going to work out. But the joy is in trying nevertheless. I would describe it as operating in the face of fear. People don't understand. They would see all these different things that I have done, yes, but you don't know how much fear was behind it. You know, so it is pushing through the barrier of fear, knowing that it could be failure on the other side, but you're willing to take the risk anyhow because there's something so soul satisfying about trying to earn your own way forward.
But you didn't know that before you started. So to step out as an entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you would say to some of the participants listening that you need to consider as you step out as an entrepreneur or to become an entrepreneur? Given, yes, as you say, there may be risk, or there always is risk, and there may be some fear. What are some
What I would say is this, that stepping out, I think number one, your soul will be satisfied. One of the things that I learned when I was in the various jobs, for a young age, I was making a relatively high salary. In one position, I had my gas paid for, my cell phone paid for, my health insurance paid for. I didn't have to look for much, but my soul was not satisfied. In stepping out, that is where you connect with your, for the most part, if you go in the direction that your gut is pulling you to, you find that you are more so connecting with your passion And regardless of if you're making $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month, you feel more fulfilled. So I would say that's the plus of you know, daring to try.
Right. Okay. And one last question before I go over to Rohan, and then I'll come back to you. You said that as a child, you were fiercely competitive in playing Monopoly, and you wanted to buy all the hotels and you wanted to buy all the houses. What was the stimulus that caused you to decide to go into being involved in real estate, apart from your Monopoly frenzy? What was the urge? I know that you have a background in marketing, but what was the urge to go into real estate in particular?
Well, when I took the second position working for Montrose Holdings, part of my portfolio would have been representing the developer as regards the sale of luxury condos. And I realized I was the person that the real estate agents across the island came to get information on the condos. By the time I had sold the 9th condo, forgive me, I'm a bit slow, I realized, wait a minute, they're walking away with how much money? And my salary is still... And I found that I liked it because it was, remember in hotel world before that, where I was a hotel and sales manager, my job was to put butts in beds. So my theory was, if I could sell hotel rooms, how much more could I sell property? And that's what piqued my interest.
Okay, all right. And in terms of your production company, how did you decide to get into that as well?
Very simple. You could not watch more TV than me. Okay? So I watched unhealthy amounts of TV. That being said, I knew what it took to make a TV show pull me and to be attractive. I knew what it took to make a popular TV show. And for that reason, I said, you know what? Why don't I try doing that as regards both radio programs and TV programs? Do stuff that I knew would be engaging and entertaining, and just try it.
Yes, okay. And you've made a success of it. Yes. Okay, Mr. Ford. Rohan?
Hello.
Hi. Could you tell us then how you started, because you said that you are young, you made it clear that you're young, 32-year-old Barbados entrepreneur. Tell us how you started your venture, Oasis Ventures.
Sure. So similar to Cherita, I think it came from a place of not being content with my circumstances, which was, at the time, I had a good job at a management level position. I was being compensated fairly. I felt like there was room to move up, but I just felt a disconnect. Like, although I was on a structured path, it was not a path of my design. And therefore, I kind of pivoted at that point and looked at areas that I could focus on. In my circumstance, I kind of tried to identify what was not being done well and seeing if I could address that. And for me, this was in the form of organized football matches. So what we would call scrimmages here in Barbados, where people would just get together and play football. And for the most part, it was pretty chaotic. And I tried to focus on organizing that chaos. And in the very early stages, people couldn't quite understand like what I was doing, which was simply getting people together to play a game. But over the years, as I've been doing this now for about 5 years, people were able to see, oh, well, once you get a few people together, then more people come and they spectate, and then they want something to eat, and then they want something to drink, then they have events and tournaments, and then you create a community around a sporting element, and it kind of spins off into more and more things from there. People have ideas, people bring opportunities to the table. And so for me, that's where I found like a tremendous joy was starting this thing from scratch, having very minimal support in the early days, very difficult to try to explain what I was trying to do, even to myself. I didn't quite understand it in the beginning. But then over the years and putting in the hours, kind of formalizing a community And that's where kind of Oasis came from, and the concept of the Oasis, where it's a spot where people come to and they kind of escape from their day-to-day life. They play sports, they have drinks, they have food and friends, and create from there. Now, notably in Barbados, it's difficult to do just one thing and kind of make a viable living. And so I didn't let go of my other interests like renewable energy, e-mobility, and electric vehicles. What I did was I created a system where I could do a little bit of everything. I did some consulting. I started a few businesses that didn't quite work out. And then I continued on the path with my sport and entertainment venture. So it was very tricky. And what I would say is that you definitely have elements of fear. Like, is this the right thing that I'm doing? Is this ever going to make money or enough money to be sustainable? Like, what is my path to profitability? But what I really found was impactful for me was being honest with myself. Like brutally honest, to the point where certain things I needed to cut out, and in certain areas that I was not good at, I needed help. I needed assistance in accounting. I needed assistance from other more suitable persons, because I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you have the idea that you're going to do it all by yourself. And quickly you realize that, well, you may be able to get it done. It might not be the most efficient way to move forward. So I think really this last year has been really beneficial for me, from kind of bringing more people on board and letting off some of those areas that I'm not as good at.
Okay. You mentioned that in your bio, I indicated that you say Oasis Ventures is focused on taking ideas to implementation.
Yep.
And you just talked very broadly about what you have done. So could you come in a more granular kind of context?
Sure.
So that our participants would understand, how do you specifically take ideas to implementation?
So what I find interesting in the community I've built up around sport is that a lot of people talk to me about their ideas. A lot of people, like I would say in the hundreds, people, they bring ideas to me, they talk to me, they say, oh, I've always wanted to try this. I find, I saw this thing on TV and I think it would work well here in Barbados. And, that's the beginning phase. It's very exciting. You have all these grandiose illusions of what it could be and how much money it's going to make, et cetera, et cetera. And so, this was happening daily. And so I thought to myself, well, some of these ideas are pretty good. So we started to write them down. One in particular that I feel okay to talk about is Flavor Fest, which was a food truck festival that we did. We wrote it down and we said, hey, we like going out to eat after we play football. We always go and talk about where we're going to go get some food. Why don't we invite all these food trucks up here to the field and have a festival? And so, we talked about it for a few weeks, and eventually we said, hey, let's actually do this. So we started by writing everything down, creating a plan of like a framework, very loose, nothing too rigid, and then figuring out what was the least amount of money we needed to do it. And then from that point, it kind of just steamrolled. We started reaching out to vendors, we started reaching out to sponsors, we started selling tickets and creating a whole hype around it. And we were able to pull off a very successful event. I think for a first time event on a day that was raining. And then anyone knows in Barbados, when it rains, most people don't like to go outside. But even on a rainy day, we were able to bring out close to 400 people to this food truck festival atmosphere. And what that really showed us was that, again, hundreds of ideas come into play, but until you actually write it down, figure out the numbers and the financials behind it, and then put a team together to execute it, those ideas don't really mean anything until you can actually see them in execution. And what we were able to do after we did it, we point out the many, many, many flaws or missteps that we did, and able to try to correct them for the future. And, you know, that is just one example, but that's typical across all of the ventures that I've tried to, you know, explore is kind of writing it down, fleshing out the financials, and then trying it out.
Okay, all right. And one last question to you before I pose a question to both of you from a participant.
Sure.
What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What are the skills would you say to someone who is soul searching, trying to decide, just as you said, they're not content with their circumstances, or they're content, but they realize that they're making money for someone else, as Cherita has said, and that you could perhaps make as much or more for yourself.
Sure.
What are the skills? What are the elements that you are saying, or your characteristics that you should possess? Or are there characteristics? Are there elements that you should possess in order to be a successful entrepreneur? I will ask you the same question a little later on as well.
Well, I think the whole idea of how you define success is a very personal thing. So, you know, for me, I think where I am today, I would consider it a successful first step. And because of that success, I've now redefined where my goals for the future. And so you could say I've completed a phase and now I'm on to another phase. So I think sometimes entrepreneurs get confused with that, and they watch what they see on TV, and they see these multi-billionaires in America, and you know, you have to really define what is it you're trying to achieve. So whatever opportunity you've identified, whatever area you're going into, be clear as to, for you, if you get to here, then you feel like, well, I've been successful so far. And I think if you were trying to pinpoint what is required for that, I would probably say courage, honesty, and persistence. And for me, balancing those are quite vital, because if you don't have the courage to try it out, and even be aware that you're probably going to fail or face significant setbacks, possible alienation from friends, from family, from, you know, it's difficult being in, say, a crowd of persons and everyone's maybe complaining about their job, or they're talking about certain things at work that it doesn't really relate to you. You know, you kind of distance yourself in certain ways. And so you have to have that courage to kind of do that. Then I talked about honesty, which I think is probably the most important lesson I've learned over the years, is really being honest with yourself and being honest with others. Because if you're not kind of, you have these ideas in your head, and when you actually say them out loud or write them down, sometimes there's a disconnect. Sometimes it's not quite what you envisioned. Somebody might say, hey, that sounds stupid, or, you know, that won't work. And I think oftentimes people get defensive and they go like, oh, well, this is my idea and I know how I'll make it work. But sometimes there's validity in other people telling you, pointing out like, oh, you didn't consider this, or you need to factor this in. And so with that honesty with yourself and taking that honest criticism from others, I think there's tremendous room for growth. And then the last point on persistence, I mean, that speaks for itself. Like, things take time. I remember when I first started the football, someone made the point to me, like, there's nowhere you're going to get demand. Like, nobody wants to play football that much. And so that kind of stuck with me. And I said, oh, let me test this out. And I had organized 2 to 3 football games every single night for 6 months. I mean, that meant on my birthday, that meant on other special occasions, anniversaries. There was a point I was overseas. I was still on my phone facilitating, organizing the football here. And, you know, like, that was just me testing out that hypothesis. Like, do people actually want to play that much football? And it turns out in Barbados, people want to play football every single day. Even during this lockdown, people are still calling, messaging me. They want to play. So, you know, that persistence to kind of take that constructive criticism, test it out, and persist over time, I think is what is required for people to achieve some level of success in whatever it is they're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. And a question from a participant, and I will actually say welcome to the participant. The participant is the chairman of the board of the Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation, Ms. Celeste Foster. Celeste, welcome, and thank you for your question. And I just want to remind participants that you can place questions in the Q&A or on the chat on your bar, please, for us. So Celeste's question to you, Rohan, first, and then I'll ask it of Cherita. Did you have family support in starting your ventures?
Yes, but it wasn't straightforward. I would say that my family is generally supportive, and we're a very loving family. I have two sisters, my mother and my father. We're very close, and we talk openly about everything. I would say that the challenge I had was, obviously, sometimes family have like a different vision of what they want your life to be, or maybe a different path they want you to follow. And it is very hard to convince them that you're going to go a different direction. It's very high risk, but you're committed to it. And I think as long as you are committed to whatever it is you're trying to do, people will come around in time. They'll see that, well, hey, this, you know, you're up when you need to be up, you're out when you need to be out, you're doing the things you need to do to give yourself the best chance of success. And so support will come either from family or otherwise, as long as people see that you're serious. I think in the initial phases, what people probably are afraid of is you putting yourself in either a financial hole or a position where, you know, it's disadvantageous for you to get a job, or, you know, some talk about dropping out of school so you don't finish your degree. So I think those are relevant fears that people have, and people that care about you have. But if you're persistent and, you know, you show them that you're serious, the support came. And in my circumstance, that was how it works. After the first couple months of questions and questioning, what is it that I'm doing? You know, when they began to see it, then they were like, okay, well, yeah, we'll get behind you and help you out.
Okay.
So definitely support is necessary.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Cherita, same question. Did you have family support when you decided to branch out as an entrepreneur?
I think what helped me is that in my family, I was seen as that child who had her own mind, that own way child.
Yes.
So when my parents saw me doing stuff, I would have had a job at the time, you know, so they would have seen me tinkering on different things. They kind of left me to my own devices because they knew that I was going to do whatever I wanted anyhow. I think what really took me to a next level of feeling truly like they've got my back is in understanding that in spite of being two parents who both would have been in teaching and one as a lecturer for about 30 years, they knew stability. They would not have known risk. But mother would have seen me after I left the Montrose Holdings job and was transitioning, so to speak. You know, I said, out of the fear of not having that stable income, I went and dabbled with, I think, 1 or 2 interviews. And my mother would see me there literally praying when the headhunters call me back. Please say no, please say no, please say no. Like, please tell me that you didn't pick me. And she saw that happen a couple times, and she set me free when she came out and said, Sherry, what are you doing? It is obvious that you don't want a job. It is obvious that this is not for you. And for her, somebody who would have been working in stability for 30 years to come up and say, you know, it's okay. It felt like she gets me.
Yes,
she
yes.
gets me free, because a lot of what we do is to please our parents. So then to hear her say it's okay, I literally felt I can do this.
Yes, good. Okay. And then the other question I asked Rohan is the characteristic skills required. What are a couple of points that you would give persons as you are embarking to set out? But then there's a question that came in on the Q&A, and it's to both speakers, and perhaps I could link the that my question with this person's question. How was your first year after stepping out on your own, especially financially? Additionally, what was your most difficult change you had to make personally in being an entrepreneur? So it's two parts to the question. Your first year stepping out and what it meant financially, and what was the most difficult change you had to make personally to become an entrepreneur? Rohan, I'm going to come back to you with the same question.
Okay.
Yes.
The first year financially would have been
Okay.
a downward spiral and fast.
All right.
But at the same time, you're kicking like a swan is kicking hard underwater. So you would see the bank account about to hit zero, and then ooh, something would come in. Okay, good. And then it would plummet again, and then and somehow the powers that be in what you were doing dictated that you never crashed out totally. So, but the reality is financially, you will take a hit. That is because, and the biggest change to me, to answer the second part, is that no longer are you getting that little check anymore on the 25th or 26th of the month. You are literally generating your own money. And if you don't generate something, you get $0 and 0 cents.
Okay. You want to answer the same question, Rohan?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. I would say that is typically the case. Your first years of entrepreneurship are not financially fantastic. Even if you're able to make a lot of money, in my circumstance, with the recycling of the car tires, that venture, I was able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first year. And I was also able to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first year. So it kind of netted out, and you see money coming in, and it just disappears so quickly when you do all your accounts and your taxes and you pay subcontractors and you end up with marketing budgets, and it goes just as fast as it comes. And what that then leads to is you have to change your lifestyle. You have to reduce your expenditure. Whether that means less partying, less going out, less spending frivolously. That's a reality of what happens. And as mentioned before, because of that change in lifestyle, you have other impacts. In my circumstance, I mean, the business venture I was in, it ended a relationship I had at the time, because it was very difficult for me to balance both worlds, which is not spending any money and then working excessive hours. And so, those are the kind of personal sacrifices that you have to go through. And, the reality is it's not for everyone. You have to make the decision when you're faced with those questions, whether this is the direction you want to go, because it is very tough. Still to this day, I don't really spend much money because I'm still trying to grow my business. And anytime I come into, any form of windfall, I try to see how I could use that in my business. It is a mindset change that occurs, whether deliberately or forced upon you. But that I would say is a difficult area that people maybe are not aware of going into it.
Okay. All right. I have 3 other questions, and all 3 are to both of you. The first person said this is a great discussion. They're learning a lot from you so far. And they're asking, did you ever think of keeping your job and doing your business venture part-time instead of quitting your job and doing business full-time right away? Also, what resources, learning, training, or courses did you do that prepared you for starting your business? So Rohan, let's go with you first, and then I'll flip to Cherita.
Sure. So on the whether you should keep your job and start your business on the side, now, again, that's a personal thing. If I could rewind time to when I had a full-time job and start my venture on the side, instead of quitting, I would. And the reason I would do that is because at the time I felt trapped. I felt like I needed to get out of this position and transition into my own business. But I do think that I forgoed a lot of cash that I could have used in my business.
Right.
And so I felt like it was a mistake for me to quit first and then start. However,
it's not a regret.
It's not a regret. It's not a regret. But however, I would say that there's a certain amount of energy that is required to run in a business. And when you apply that energy to your job or your 9 to 5, as people would say, it is increasingly difficult to then manufacture new energy and new enthusiasm to put towards your business. And there's burnout. Burnout is a real thing. So, there's only a certain amount of hours in a day that you could be productive, and you're either going to be productive for yourself or for somebody else. So I would say that from a financial point of view, I felt conflicted about quitting. From a progress point of view, probably it was the right decision. With regards to programs that could help, I mean, there is a tremendous, I've been in this lockdown time, spending a lot of time on YouTube, a lot of time online on training courses, Instagram, articles you can read. There is tremendous content available for free. And therefore, it's more so about thinking about what is it that you're trying to do. And then you can start to Google and YouTube and whatnot from there.
Okay. Cherita, you want to respond to that question, please?
With regard to the first question, I would say it is, in an ideal world, I believe you should try to let your day job fund your passion. However, there are some businesses in which you can't straddle. For example, my primary one, which was real estate, people would call during the day. So initially I had a job, yes, and I would try to fit the viewings in at lunchtime. But as volume picked up, there was no way that I could have done that. Also, to grow the business, as Rohan was saying, it takes a lot of time and effort. So unbeknownst to people, every single night I was up to either 1 or 3 a.m., either adding something to the website, reading notes, learning about the legal aspect every single day. So you can imagine how tired I was going to the day job.
Correct.
But if you are able to, if what you are building is a business that you can do initially after work or on weekends, hang on to the day job, because you will need the funds. As Rohan said, the cash is what is the challenge at the start. Just remind me of the second question. I can't remember what that was there.
Okay, what are the skills, the education, the training, seminars, workshops, and so on that you need to, there was 2 parts of that person that you need to acquire.
Well, as regards the real estate, which was for me was the primary thing, I was smart. While I was in the job as a developer's agent, I said, you know what? I think y'all want me to represent you as best as possible. So what about, funding that 5-month real estate sales course at community college?
Right.
And the beauty is they funded it, and the knowledge is something that you can't take away from me.
Right.
But in addition to that too, there is so much content on the internet, number one. Number two, whatever you want to pursue, there's somebody doing it already. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Follow them on social media. Listen to their stories. Listen to their marketing ideas. Watching somebody who is ahead of you in the game and who's done it already gives you the motivation and also the insight as to what you can put into gear to make your business grow and stand out. Right.
We'll take this quick one. Where can you find support for the writing of effective proposals and tools for other areas like business plans, etc.?
The internet.
Yeah.
The internet has it all.
All there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second that. The internet is a tremendous resource that I think people kind of take for granted, because, if you really want to deep dive into any topic, it's all there. It's all the information is there. And what I would say, mainly for the business plan, you can find a template. you can look at YouTube videos, you can call people, but the focus, that will give you the generic stuff. But really the idea and the understanding of your particular market segment is the stuff that no one can teach you that. You have to know particularly how you're going to go about it and why it would work in your particular circumstance. So getting the headings, which would be like the company name, the organization, the financials, the marketing, that's relatively easy. But the idea itself is where you need to spend time developing.
And in addition, I would say that right here in Barbados, we have YES, the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, Fund Access, the Small Business Association. Some of the banks offer some of those kinds of workshops as well. And we see them in the paper from time to time. So the point that both of you are making is that there's a host of information all around. Some you could do face-to-face, and a lot of it you could do online. So let me take one question from someone of you on Facebook. What keeps you motivated when a project fails, if you've had failures? I am putting that in, or didn't go how you wanted it to go? Rohan is smiling. Yes, you want to take that one first?
Sure, I'll start first. Failure will happen, and there is nothing that softens the blow. It is very difficult. It's a very a gut punch. People describe it as it could take you out of your mojo, your game for months maybe. But I think what it does is it asks you the tough question that you've said you want to go out and do this thing. You want to go out and be an entrepreneur. You want to start a coffee shop, or you want to do this thing. And I think, again, this is what it means to have that. This is what it means to be a business owner. This is what it means to be an entrepreneur. And so it is, while it hurts and while it's tough to take at the time, if you're able to find a path out of it, like that is that's what you ask for.
Right.
You ask for that difficulty. And so I think in my circumstance where I've had failures, they've not been like overnight recoveries, but what they have done is given me perspective. So I've tried to use it in that way.
All right, Cherita, you want to respond?
As regards failure, gut punch is such a soft word, Rohan. I have been steamrolled. But I think the beauty of failure is that, first of all, when you're going through stuff that you see crashing and burning, you think you're gonna die.
Right. Yeah.
But then when you come out of it, you have learned a lesson that now puts you closer towards the expert category.
Correct. Yes.
Because you have literally gone through something and you know what you will never ever do again, and you know what modifications you will take to ensure that you're not in that situation again. Right. So I would say the reality is, when you get into business, yes, you do everything to try to pad and protect and whatever, but failure is kind of inevitable. Right. And when it comes, the key is to handle it gracefully and to get back up and keep going. That's the honest truth. It is something that will define you, but will also set you apart as regards experience, because you've gone through something now that nobody will ever be able to hopefully get you at again.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'll take one more question, because I think that two other questions, but you've answered in your other questions or in your discussion, you have responded to some of them, but there's one that hadn't come up before. What new industries, opportunities do you see coming out of this pandemic? And I suppose it is what you see may be relevant in the context of Barbados. So they're asking you to look into your crystal ball, because even Dr. Fauci can't tell us when this thing is going to stop. However, seriously though, what new industries or opportunities, and that's a critical point, that you see probably emerging coming out of this pandemic that could inform persons who want to become entrepreneurs in Barbados? Go, Cherita.
Well, firstly, I would say that it has done a quickening in Barbados, in the sense of changing mentality and changing what we are receptive to. The beauty of what is coming from ashes is that we have been fast-tracked out of a lot of old school methods of operating to real quick catching up with international standards of how business is done. Yes, business is done from home. Yes, business is done via Zoom. Yes, people are getting their groceries delivered. So this has been stuff that has been happening, but culturally we were, I don't want to say resistant, but resistant to it. Yes. So I think first of all, culturally we have been opened up now and awakened to so many things that we may not have accepted before. And you can see, I was telling someone, if you were a person that had woken up on January 1st with an idea of opening up a vegetable business and having a website, your friends would have scoffed at you, say, listen, they got the market for that.
Yes.
If you had dropped the ball on that, you would have missed an opportunity during this season that just happened. So I think a lot of those online businesses with agriculture will now flourish. People were not receptive before, but they now will be. So a lot of online ventures linked to food, agriculture, delivery, and so forth. And also any venture that had to do with an online presence that you have thought that, Beijing's not going to come on to YouTube to hear this. They're probably going to be very open now.
Yes,
so that's what I believe.
Right. Yes. Okay. Rohan, any insight?
Yeah, I would say definitely things that are tech-based. It's clear, like, that is going to be the future. And integrating tech into whatever it is you do, having some kind of digital presence. And for me, again, I think looking at areas like food security, clean transportation, clean energy, renewable energy, things like digital currencies and fintech. All these areas, we've been kind of hearing about them for a while. But I feel like what will be required to pull ourselves out of this situation we're in is building innovation and focusing on things that probably prior you might have said, oh, that's going to take too long or that would be impossible. Is very possible now. And so for me personally, I'm going to be pouring my hours into renewable energy for some time. And I think if anyone's able to identify something that's not being done correctly or could be done better, now is as good a time as any to try that new way of doing it.
Great. I think that's a good wrapping up question, unless either of you have something else that you wish to say. But I think we have exceeded our 45 minutes. It was, in fact, a very insightful and energizing session. And to all of those many persons who would have either joined us on Facebook or live, we wish to say thank you very much. This was the first of our series, and we are really heartened by the kind of response that we've had. To Cherita and to Rohan, thank you. It was a delight having you because you've been very practical in terms of your ideas. And I think the main points that I would say that you're leaving with the participants is that you must have an idea, you must plan, you must have the energy, you must work at it. There's the whole question of persistence, the question of courage. Yes, there will be risk, but reach out and learn as much as you can, because that's one of the things that I think Cherita was saying from the beginning, that to absorb as much as you can, learn as much as you can from wherever you can. And to you, Rohan, you talked about being persistent, being honest, and looking not in a small context, but as big and as wide as you would wish to go and make a go of it. So thank you to Rohan and Cherita. Please don't log off. But I wish to thank the board of the BEF for supporting this initiative. And I really, really must thank the three heads that have been put together to launch this series: Susan Branca Green, Ryan Ford, and Christian Paul, all directors of the Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us and have a good evening.